How about now? Can she hear now? You hear that?
Oh, I don't have my agenda. Thank you.
Maybe he's trying to get them. Janet Gregory.
Dan says he's trying to.
Okay.
Patricia put up.
Dan is trying to.
Do you know, we have two? There's just two on here?
Two what?
There's someone on a cell phone. We'll get their name once we get rolling. Janet Gregory and
Janet.
Ray Waltemate. Wait, Jan Lister's trying to join.
But so none of these are on there.
No, unless they are the Middleton. That's a Middleton phone number, so maybe that's.
Well, maybe that's all of them.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, that could be. Could also just be.
Where the people said they wanted to call her.
Yeah.
They said they wanted to call her.
Yeah, he's just trying to get in.
How do we get those
I think
names?
that's him now.
Dan Lister there.
There's me.
Okay.
Hey, Dan.
Hi.
Okay, we're good. Okay. Makes me nervous. Good afternoon. It is Tuesday, May 26th. Commissioner Van Beek, Commissioner White, Commissioner Dale. We are in the Commissioner's meeting room. Monica Reeves is with us to do the clerk as the deputy clerk. Actually, she's running this WebEx meeting, and it is WebEx. And those of you that are in this room, we'll get you sworn in before we go. And then I've got a lot of people that have called in here. And those of you that are on the phone or through WebEx, I need you to identify yourselves, if you would, please.
This is Ray Waltemate, Chair.
Ray. Okay.
And
This
Janet
is Bruce
Gregory.
Payne with Bruce Payne with the City of Middleton, Planning and Zoning Official.
Bruce Bain. Janet Gregory. Okay, let's see.
Can we just?
How about the phone number? Or your 208-585? Are you? Bruce? Is that your phone?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. Is Becky Crofts with you?
No, she wasn't able to attend. She has a family emergency, so it's just
Okay.
be myself.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's see. So, do you have any other ones, Monica?
No, that's
No?
what I've got as well.
Okay, Bruce, you are, okay, you're going to testify. Mr. Walmate,
Yes, ma'am.
are you wishing to testify?
Depending on what I hear, yes or no.
Are you for or against?
Opposed?
You are opposed, okay.
Yes.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to swear everybody in that is signed up to speak. Bruce Bain is going to, so we'll get that one. And he is. Okay. Okay.
I think I've got him.
You got him. Okay, Monica will swear you in at this time.
Dan Lister, Alan Mills, Carrie Smith Sigmund, Nick Hilton, Jessica Skinner, Ray Waltemate, Bruce Bain, Janet Gregory. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God?
I do. I do.
I do.
I do.
Okay, I think that we got them all. Okay. What we will do now is we'll start with staff. Dan is WebExing in, and you should be able to see him up there. So we'll start with Dan. Are you ready to go?
Yes. Thank you, Madam
Okay.
Chair and Commissioners. Before you, the applicant is requesting, the Morrisons are requesting to rezone the yellow area, as you see on the screen, shown on the slide, from an agricultural zone to an R1 rural residential, single-family residential zone. The area outside the yellow shade, and I'll annotate that. Right here is already a zone commercial, and it's not part of this application. The minimum lot size, for this zone is a 1 acre average lot size, if served with by individual septic and well. In 1991, a conditional use permit was approved for a game bird operation on this parcel. A game bird operation, yep. On July 18, 2019, this rezone did come before the Planning and Zoning Commission, however, was withdrawn to seek out a review by the new mayor after Darren Taylor has left. So they were waiting to see if they can negotiate with them, and they're back with the same application as before. The area is predominantly zoned agricultural and rural residential, as shown on the zoning map on the left-hand side. Comprehensive plan designates the parcel as residential, as shown in the center of the screen. Middleton's future land use map designates the area for residential uses, as shown on the right hand of the screen. City water is located along Emmett Road, adjacent to the subject property. City sewer is located approximately 1,350 feet east on West 9th Street. The city is currently working on extending the sewer immediately south of the subject property. 4 subdivisions are located adjacent to the subject parcels. We have Green Estates with a 1.44 average acre average lot size. Kinder Platts with a 6.33 acre average lot size. Willis Creek subdivision with a 1.5 acre average lot size. And DNS Purple Sage Ranchettes with a 1.18 acres average lot size. Of the 37 subdivisions within the general area, 14 are within the city limits. The majority of the property contains moderately suited soil and is considered prime farmland if irrigated. The parcels are located outside of the city of Middleton, where growth is the parcel is located outside of the city of Middleton, where residential growth is not anticipated. The parcels are located within a 480-acre traffic analysis zone delineated by the state and local transportation officials for tabulating traffic-related data. The data provides future population, household, and job forecasts. Within the zone, the population currently forecasted as 134 people with 46 households. By 2040, household and population forecasts are unchanged. However, the subject parcel is adjacent to traffic analysis zones forecasting 151 to 500 households by 2040. These zones are located actually within the city of Middleton where growth is anticipated. The parcels are located within a nitrate priority area. Wells in the area indicate there's nitrate issues in the water. However, they do not exceed DEQ's nitrate thresholds. All right, let's see. Staff finds that all the required findings in accordance with the Canyon County Zoning Ordinance Section 070605 cannot be made as demonstrated in the staff report. The Canyon County Comprehensive Plan encourages residential development and growth to be located where public infrastructure and facilities are available. City of Middleton opposes the rezone because it promotes residential sprawl outside the city limits where services are available. Therefore, staff is recommending that the commission deny the request. This is in compliance with the Planning and Zoning Commission's recommendation to the board on February 6, 2020. And that concludes staff's presentation.
Thank you, Dan. Questions?
Yes, Madam Chair. Dan, would you clarify again? This was purchased, I thought I heard you say, in 1991 and was permitted as a bird farm. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Correct. Sorry. Go ahead.
Pardon me. So for almost 20 years, there's been no active tilling or farming on this. Is that correct?
I'm not quite sure about that part. I just know about I was looking up all the previous approvals, and one of them that came up was a conditional use permit for the game bird operation, which is closer to probably the west and south of the property, as you can see on the screen.
Okay. And then I have a clarification question that is contained on the first page of the staff report. This property is separated into three separate parcels. R34501-2A, A1, and A2. And in the first paragraph of the staff report, you have listed there, just the letter A would represent the 1.27 acres where the Mortenses currently have their home.
Right.
Home. And then A1, 7.8 acres. And then A2 would be the 33 acres. But if you look down under parcel history on the third paragraph in 2011, parcel A2 is listed at approximately 10 acres. Can you clarify that? I think it's supposed to be 33 acres, but it would make a difference because the commercial portion of this is not included in the staff report.
Correct. So this portion here, roughly 10 acres, is an area that is currently zone C1 and is not being considered as part of this rezone. This was done back in 2010.
And that part, I appreciate that, Dan. If you look at it, though, A2 is listed in there as 10 acres, and A2 on the top is listed as 33.38 acres. So
okay, so it says a portion of the parcel, approximately 10 acres, is this rezoned area. But the total, so the total, so the actual site, the actual parcel itself goes like this all the way over here to there.
So 10 acres out of that 33.38 acres, we're taking out of that consideration. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah, up against Emmett Road here is already zoned for commercial uses.
Okay. And then can you, with your pointer, then highlight A1?
A1 is right here. I'll show you. A1. Right there.
Okay. Thank you, Dan.
No problem.
I do have a question too, because I was reading in the planning and zoning aspect of it as well. It was stated and that this is contiguous to City of Middleton property. This is not contiguous. Which is the right answer there for the record, Dan?
It is contiguous. So the parcel line is right here, which is, this is also the city limit line. You can see right here at the hatch marks. This is city limits. Over on this side, there's the high school right here.
Okay.
And then so there's water. Yeah. So it is contiguous to the city limits.
Okay. And the water is right there in Emmett Road.
Correct.
Dan, Madam Chair, can I follow up on that? I thought, and so that's a great question, I thought the services were tracking moving east to west on 9th Street. I mean, I know that they would be at the high school, but where's the stub? Or, because we had a land use decision last year that wanted to, it was the phase-on subdivision that wanted to hook up on 9th Street is where I thought that stub was located.
Correct, and I'll show you. So this is face-on subdivision. Let me get my. There's Anna. That's face-on subdivision right there, and the water is through here and down this way. So there's already water services going up against Emmett Road and 9th Street. What I believe, and I think the City of Middleton would be able to answer this better, is I think city services are way over on the east side of 9th Street, and they would have to bring it over. So sewer is not adjacent, but water is.
Sewer is a quarter of a mile south, is that right?
Along 9th Street, on the corner of 9th Street and that, I forget what that adjacent street is there. Let me make sure what that is. They get a different map. Believe it's, and again, I think the City of Middleton can probably highlight this better, but I think it's right here, right now.
Okay.
And then they would have to bring it over to the site.
Thanks, Dan.
No problem.
The sewer is 1,380 feet from the roundabout.
Correct. So here's the roundabout on 9th, and so it's about over here. So that's, yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for Dan?
I understand it.
No? Okay, thank you, Dan.
No problem.
Okay, at this time, we will, the applicant, Alan, who's representing the applicant? Alan?
I will be the representative, but we'd like to go in order of 1, 2, and 3, and then I'm.
Now, say that again. So who's going first?
We're with Jessica.
Okay.
And then Gary, and then.
Okay.
Jessica and Harry.
And Nick is 3, and you're 4, Alan. Okay. Jessica. Name and address, please.
Jessica Skinner. I don't remember all the numbers. It's like 1, 2, 8, 9, 6. South 5 Mile Road.
It's 12689.
Yeah, that one. Thank you. I just moved, so. All right. So, while we're on the subject of the septic, so when phase-on subdivision, the one that was, he showed you where he said the water was. So we were at their hearing when they did their final plat approval. They said to take the sewer from 9th to their subdivision. And I fell off my chair with like, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like $7 million. It was in the millions to take the septic. And the City of Middleton said, well, we provided that far, blah, blah, blah. They haven't. It's when you develop, you pay to have this septic or the sewer line, trunk line taken out. It's cost prohibitive. And Dan says we're contiguous. That's the word, contiguous. But we have the commercial between us and the high school. In the 2020 Comprehensive Canyon County Plan, it says, encourage opportunities for a diversity of housing choices in Canyon County. It also states, encourage a variety of housing choices that meet the needs of families, various age groups, and incomes. So I'm a real estate broker, and I pulled numbers and I've looked at numbers and I keep tracking numbers. So anything with a Middleton address, whether it's in the city of Middleton or just a Middleton address. So I pulled everything today to see how many 1 acre parcels were available right now on the market. There are 2. There are 2 1 acre parcels available today. So as you can see, there is a need for this diversity. There were 7 parcels available just over 1 acre. But when I searched just for the acre, this parcel is basically across the street from the high school. There's really no reason that it shouldn't or can't be developed. They have done the bird farm there since the 90s, and he's still farming it as a bird farm, and apparently they stink. So you can have the stinky bird farm, or you can have the R1, which is 1 acre minimum, which is going to have a lot less impact on the traffic because traffic is an issue. 1 acre parcels will have a lot less impact than if you pack them in and annex it into the city, I guess. There's been an MP study on the property, and they said basically, Reader's Digest condensed version, is they would approve to 45 homes without impacting the country or whatever. Was that my timer?
Yes.
Okay. I'll be quiet then. I'll stand for questions.
Any questions for Ms. Skinner?
So, yeah, I do. Just to clarify. So, it's your position that because of the commercial property that is right on Emmett Road, that you're saying that the residential is not contiguous?
Yes.
I think we'll have to have that clarified with Dan. The definition of contiguity, the area for rezone is not contiguous, but the area that the property owner already still owns is contiguous. So that's kind of a kind of a gray area there, but it seems like to me the whole property is that one parcel and it's all contiguous.
Well, if you look at it that way, but if you look at what we're asking for the rezone, it's not.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Not at this time, but I reserve the right to ask questions.
Okay, thank you. So, Carrie.
Oh.
Miss? You guys. You guys are going to switch it up next, okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, my name is Nick Hilton. I live at 13075 Willis Road, which is the second house in from the north roundabout, and basically represent the people who live all along that side of the property and their mouthpiece. Just a few things we want to mention. First of all, we are all for this. Partly because of traffic. The traffic issue is a big thing. The city of Middleton wants 3 houses per acre in here if they annex it. As Dan mentioned a minute ago, that the study said that there would be 500 trips per day, 50 in peak hours. You've been through there. They try 40 school buses at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The school bus drivers hate it already. And to add to that, if you put 3 houses per acre, that's 140 houses. That's 1,500 trips and 150 trips during peak hours. In between 2 roundabouts. It can't handle that. The other thing is that everything west of Emmett Road is RRA or R1. I mean, you go all the way to the freeway, it's that way. We are. And behind on Chauncey Lane, those are 5 acre lots. And they've already built about 4 or 5 houses in there. So that's kind of something. I kind of went through some of the stuff. The questions that asked in the report says, is it surrounded by low density residential? Yes, it is all the way around. You guys approved Pheasant Point just a couple months ago. That's the bottom piece there, right where it says Emmett. and that's 1 acre plus lots, and you guys approved that. Is it compatible with surrounding land use? Yes. It's all, 1 acre. Will it negatively affect the character of the area? No, but it would with R3, because we'd have high density right in the middle of all the low density homes, and then pilot right on the high school. Middleton encourages high density, which is the case with negative impact. It'd be 500 trips up to 1,500 trips and 150 in peak hours. This is mentioned 6 times in the first 8 pages of your report. The property is already designated as residential in the Cannon County future land use plan. It's already in that case. When considering the surrounding land, is it appropriate? Yes. Is it compatible? Yes. This would also support wells and septic systems. And I think Alan will address that in a minute. The water table has actually come up underneath us. Our water runs from east to west, almost directly towards the Oregon Trail Church of God. All of the land east of Emmett Road, going north all the way to the Purple Sage, is being cut in right as we speak. I just drove out there this morning. They're cutting sewer and water into it from the city, and the drain is direct. The other thing I wanted to mention is our property goes this way, away from the road. You're going to have to pump the sewage. You're going to have to, the water would run in there. The pumping sewage out of there is going to be a mess. This would be basically the last set of wells and septic systems in the whole system. And it would support that. The water level will support that. The flow is down towards Willis Creek. That would support that. One other thing I want to mention real quickly is my current tax year is $1,448.68. Of that, I pay $187.58 to Middleton Fire. I pay $55.64 to Middleton Recreation. I pay $517.87 to Middleton Schools, which is 55%, $761 of my tax bill goes to Middleton already. We're not freeloaders on that side of the Okay, so I just wanted to mention that. Any questions?
No, thank you. Appreciate that.
I guess I just have a comment, and maybe or maybe this is for Alan, but in the staff report, the flow in that area where you mentioned the aquifer, I thought was 200 gallons a minute, and maybe Alan can just verify that.
My well is 85 gallons a minute.
Okay.
And on Willis Road. The other thing is all the nitrate wells that show up are on the other side of Willis Creek on the hill, or towards those areas. That seems to be the nitrate issue. The nitrate actually goes across the middle of the edge of it, but my well tested 0.
Okay, but this hasn't been like row cropped or feedlotted. This has just been a bird farm.
Yes, it's just been, and just only down in the bottom corner, down there.
A little tab there, yeah.
On the other one, you see the pin. The other part of it that comes back to me is a hay field, and it has not been cut for 3 years.
Right.
Basically, the alfalfa died out. There's nothing there anymore.
Are they grazing anything in it? Do they graze any cattle in there?
No, nothing. They put goats in there one time 3 years ago, around through there, and I actually kept one of them alive. He was born about that big in the dark and the rain, and I kept him alive all night. Got a good mom with it.
So it's just weed.
But that's there's been nothing there. Ken doesn't use it at all. Like I say, my biggest concern is the high density right in front of the high school. It's not smart, guys. You got all that behind and all that north, all the way to Purple Sage. They're cutting. Put Hartley. They cut Hartley. Put all that stuff in there, going through there. I mean, they're working like crazy up there.
Okay, thank you.
Also, I just wanted to say that the statement that growth was not anticipated to the south or to the north of the high school. There's a brand new subdivision going in by those soccer fields, so this growth is occurring.
Yes.
In that area along with.
Yeah, it goes all the way. It goes from Emmett Road all the way across to Cemetery. Partly at the center of it.
Yes.
And they're cutting all that in as we speak. They're working out there right now. They're dust flying. And that's high density. All of that.
Okay. So that's going to go with the R3?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Hilton,
Thanks.
very much.
Thank you.
Okay, Carrie Smith-Sigmund, name and address, please.
Carrie Smith-Sigmund, 17741 Linden Lane, Caldwell, Idaho 83607. Okay, I have a lot to cover in a few minutes. Okay, so one of the things I was looking at was this is a perfect fit if you look at the R1 standards, it is to promote and enhance single family and low density standards. This is consistent with the area and the uses in the area. The comprehensive plan also calls it for residential. When I look at those standards and I look at past staff reports and findings of fact from development services in Canyon County in the Middleton impact area, you find staff reports that are consistent with that support these decisions. So for example, Rezone 2018-0038 has multiple standards that are consistent with the rezone request. You do not find these comp plan amendment policies on the staff report for this one. You can also find the rezone request to the north of the subject property that was passed, and it's also adjacent to the city of Middleton, so it's very similar, and it had a recommendation of approval, and it made sense. It made sense to approve this next to the school, and like Ms. Skinner said, the demand for a 1 acre lot in Canyon County is very real. This is a very good transition into an area that is rural in nature and still provides for a rural lifestyle versus the high density that the neighboring communities do not support. I would also, looking at our zoning ordinance on the Sterling Codifier's website, when you look at Article 6 for the rezone, and you're looking at the amendment requirements for a zoning ordinance amendment, it does not require a full parcel to be rezoned. There is no standard in the ordinance that I can find anywhere that mandates a full parcel rezone request. Hence, an accepted application for a partial parcel rezone. And it was accepted that way. So I think you could easily, there's also, I've confirmed, there's not a definition of contiguous in our zoning ordinance. So either way, it's not even subject to interpretation. It doesn't exist. And so the application was for a partial parcel. I think that you should be looking at it as not contiguous. If you do want to look at it as contiguous, you should look at other decisions that have been made and precedent has been set that allows for property to be rezoned in the county and not for the annexed property. And so with those were my main points. The other hearing that you could look at is also one that was on Stoffel Lane. This one was contiguous to the city of Star, but it was in the Middleton impact area. And it was also designated residential and supported a rezone request to residential R1. So lots of them on the book. This one is very consistent with the area, and I would encourage support of this application.
Any questions?
No, thank you. Appreciate it.
Any questions? Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Mills.
Thank you. Alan Mills, Box 206, Middleton, Idaho. First of all, thank you for holding this meeting in person for us low-tech guys, or me particularly. And I congratulate you on enlarging the parking lot out here.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I would ask for a little leniency on time. I have 6 letters. I don't need them, but neighbors that would rather I speak and that they didn't. I can submit those to you if you want.
Thank you.
Then we had one person that was not able to attend. He's a mortgage broker, and you know that market right now is crazy. But he sent an email. He would ask me to read this into the record. And this is from Rick Freed. Rick is a Canyon County Planning and Zoning Commission. He recused himself from this case earlier, even though he has no financial interest in his property. He does have a relative that is a relative to Mortensen, so he chose to not participate in the actual decision. But he has his opinion.
So that's submitted on the record as well.
So I will read that for you real quick as I can. Please accept these comments, testimony that are in favor of the rezone request. and R1 zone very consistent with many parcels within the greater vicinity of subject property. It is noted in the staff report that the amendment is required to meet several criteria as outlined. Yet I do not see anything mentioned about meeting the applicant's property rights. The proposed rezone is consistent with the comp plan. There is a development pattern to the immediate south of the subject properties zone R1. There are development patterns to the immediate west, north, and across Lewis to the north. The comp plan is to encourage residential development, but not necessarily zoning specific or high density. The most economical and efficient manner of development for the application is not the cost of connecting to city services, city taxes, and the ongoing monthly expenses associated with city services. The planner comments that the request would block the path of growth anticipated by the city. Taking a close look at the properties and topography to the west of the subject property, it is highly unlikely and impractical to anticipate that city services would extend to the west of the subject. The proposed character of the property would not have a negative effect or impact on the area. There was an overwhelming testimony of adjacent property owners that favored the request and adamantly opposed connecting city services or having the property be subject to higher density. Any Highway District 4 does not oppose the request. Adequate facilities will be provided, subject to respective approvals for such services. However, Middleton City feels that the only adequate facilities are city services. That is biased and erroneous. Middleton Fire recommends connecting to the city services as preferred solution. I am reminded that it is not the applicant's desire to do so, once again biased. The request is clearly within the rights of the property owner, does not adversely impact the surrounding property owners, and is consistent with multiple projects in the surrounding area. The project is generally consistent with the comp plan. Two major organizations that oppose the request do so with a recommendation to connect city services, and that implies annexation, and that further implies forcing the property owner to annex to gain approval of the rezone. It is not the owner's desire to annex, and in fact, it must be the owner's decision to rise to choose annexation, if at all. I make reference to House Bill 25 that prevents forced annexation. I feel that it is the best interest of the county to avoid making a decision that requires, implies, or suggests that property owner must annex into a city in order to obtain approval of rezone property. Such rezoning for a decision would place the county in opposition to House Bill 25. I further submit that if the city feels that city service and annexation are in the best interest of the property owner, then the city should consider pardoning the property owner in an effort to send such a decision. At this time, I did not see any efforts to work with or incent property owners, but only to condition or oppose the request otherwise. Unless a city or fire district can provide evidence that annexation of city services are a benefit to a property owner, I submit that their opposition is because the rezone, as requested, has no self-serving benefits to them. This concludes my comments and testimony. Thank you for allowing that. So can we have the first map? I think this will work. Can we have a pointer?
Yes.
Dual pointer.
I know. Well, I kind of have to see which one's got battery power. This one's not doing very good.
Works on the wall, but not on the map.
But the battery's going out on it. Yeah, Monica's changing the battery on this one. We'll see if that gives you a little better power. These things are powered up good. They'll knock a bird off the wire.
Really?
Well, I've never tried it, but
I saw a bird just sitting with his wings not going the other day, and there was no wire, and he'd gone wireless.
oh.
Here's one.
There's only one. See if that's going to do any better.
Better. I'd like to go over a little history of this place. My father-in-law owned this 80, bought it on the Veterans Program in the 1950, plowed it out of sagebrush with a single Jeep and a single plow. This is his son, Kenneth Green. This is his grandson. This is his niece. This is his wife, still living, daughter, and several other relatives in this area. And I'd like to give just a little history of the way this impact area came about. I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission in the 90s when we renegotiated these areas. we had people in opposition to coming into the impact area. They had fears. They had fears of tax increases, which is not really right. That's not valid. Or at least in my experience, I haven't seen it be a problem. They also had fears of being regulated without representation. And that's where we are today. When the case was made to us as P&Z commissioners and then later to the commissioners, it was with statements almost verbatim that these people won't know they're even in an impact area unless they ask to be annexed. We're not going to come to them and try to force annex them or anything like that. They'll have to come to us. And now here we are today with heavy pressure being put on by City of Middleton. And that's how Article 9 came about too. Article 9 states clearly, and you have it in your book, the Canyon County Comprehensive Plan, zoning ordinance, subdivision ordinances have jurisdiction. That was for a reason. If you go back on the books and look at some of the proposals, and it has nothing to do with current administration of the City of Middleton, it's previous to that. Problem is, the administration changed, and they don't get the benefit of knowing how things came about. So now we find ourselves very comfortable in the 90s. We have that assurance that they're not coming after us. Our rights are the same as they were before. Now we have those rights being infringed upon or being tried to be infringed upon. But the sewer is here. It's coming to here, although you'll see on the map that Bruce Bain from the city put that he has it going clear into here. That's erroneous according to the mayor and city council. It's stopping at River Road. Danny Bauer from Morris, Bowers and Hodge, attorneys in Radian, attended the P&Z commission meeting, made it very clear that this is not contiguous. There is a distinct difference, and he was citing case, so you can go back and work that in. This application is not contiguous to the city. And secondly, the growth just naturally, if you look at the county zoning map and comp plan map, this is all developed. This is all county, all the way through, all the way to almost to Stone Lane going west. And there's reasons for that. You see the city of Middleton going north, and it's going east, and it's going south, and that's because sewer will get there. This would probably sewer. I'm not going to say it would, but anything west of this is going to take lift station, and there is no single ownership of property big enough to justify a lift station that size. The other thing is, this is a classic infill project. If you look at the zoning map, you've got county. This is a perfect place. If you put city in here, you've gone and actually done an enclave. You've now got a city surrounded by county. And it just clearly defined this so compatible to go to R1. That whole neighborhood wants this. They fear the other. They have some justification in that fear because the city of Middleton not long ago tried to force annex this size of properties. They failed. Thank heavens they failed. But that puts everybody on edge. That are they coming after us? And if you're under 5 acres, they have the legal right to do that. The staff report, unfortunately, is exactly opposite of the 7 that I'm familiar with personally. We can go to Stockville Lane, Kingsbury Lane, Duff Lane, and I can show you 7 other cases, all positive staff reports, and all approved, that are just demographically the same as this. This seems to be arbitrary and capricious. It just sticks out that this is so different. And the only difference I can see is the city is objecting to it in a strenuous manner. So I've done pretty some adjacent to Caldwell boundaries, Nampa boundaries, and never had the city object to those. They worked with us and saw that it worked for them. So this just seems to be a little out of range. I would say also that we would ask for your approval on that project to maintain consistency, to give great weight to the neighborhood, which are your constituents that are screaming that please protect us from, what we don't want. And the city just can't make a compelling case that this is going to be a necessary thing for them. This is not going to stop their growth if they want to go west. They got their Kavika property, they got their Cada property, they got plenty of room to go west, where there are some larger ownerships to the south. And we would like to see you apply if you would find in favor of the Canyon County applicable ordinances and find that this doesn't meet the test for an R1 zone. And I understand your questions.
I have one. I saw your hand, Mike, provision. Go ahead.
Well, I want to talk about, as you referenced it, and I know you're very familiar with that Middleton area, and it has to do with the topography west of this development. We looked at that ground in that previous hearing, but it is full of tremendous variation in elevation. And so help me out, if you wanted to put city services in there, you'd have to find the lowest point of elevation and then excavate below that. It would be what you said, cost prohibitive, I think, to be able to do all of that in that area with a city. And there's people in there, that Chauncey Lane, those people moved there to protect that rural feel, I think. Speak a little bit about that.
That's correct. Gary Howard owns, disappeared again.
Yeah, it's a little bit flaky.
Garen Apple owns a property immediately adjacent to the west, and he's already platted through the county. Gary Howard owns a property adjacent to the west of Garen Apple, and he has no interest and no desire to have city services. He wants to preserve it for county and rural flavor. And there is, like you mentioned, very steep topography. After you leave this property and start going west, it drops off significantly down to the Heartbeat Range. And there are no large ownerships of property that would justify bringing the sewer and water there. Now, that may not be the case off of 44. The Kavika and Cada properties are fairly large, but the city has purchased a property on Highway 44 west of Canyon Lane. And City Councilman Huggins told me it was for the purpose of a potential lift station. So they have the mechanisms and the property in place to do it if it's needed. But it's interesting, there's been no, with all this growth, and we've been through several cycles. I've been in it 49 years. We've had no interest in going west of Emerald by anybody, not one. And there's been high interest every other direction.
And it was with the argument that was made, if they wanted to push those services west, they would choose to go down 44 rather than through that very topography right through the middle of all that private ground.
It would be natural to run a trunk line up partly drained in that topography there and then go down to 44. But it wouldn't serve anybody. It's mostly all developed already. It's all acreage is just like this.
Okay, thank you for your testimony.
My question was just that at one point I thought I heard that there was another option for west water and sewer and another route option, and you kind of addressed that with Commissioner Van Beek. So,
okay.
One more question, Madam Chair. When's the last time, Alan, that you saw heavy equipment, a baler or swath or anything on that, and talk about the feasibility of putting that kind of equipment through 2 roundabouts on 20 acres?
I have not personally seen any. I know a lot of farmers avoid the roundabouts because they're just not designed for farm equipment.
Okay. And then can you talk about the flow in that area? I know you're familiar and you have developed a table, water tables and whatnot.
Yes.
I thought that was a good point somewhere in that staff report.
The water, we have some real blessings in our area. We have not only quality, but we have quantity. Now you can go to Emmett, you can go to other places and get quality or quantity, but you can't get quality. Middleton actually has superior water. The wells in this area are in a different aquifer than the city well. City wells in the 370 foot range, and the average here is 150 to 180. One property owner just to the north of this has 200 gallons a minute flow and a 6-inch well. That's phenomenal. But the quality is also there. My brother-in-law, well, not working. My brother-in-law on the corner of this property is 220 gallons a minute at 180 feet. It's just a phenomenal walk, and it has not changed downward to any measurable degree since potentially 15 years before 69. The tests that the IWDR did were from 69, and some 15 years are there now.
Wow.
So it's been a tremendous area.
And then a little bit about, because there's some, I guess, maybe conflicting information about requiring fire services, but this falls less than 5 minutes from the Milton Fire Department, if I understand this correctly.
I would think that'd be about right. It's about 3.5 miles or in that range. The fire sprinklers are the other option. There's more than one option to achieve fire.
And my point was just that it falls within the range of services provided because of the proximity to the fire station.
Not only fire station, but there'll be hydrants real close to the property.
Okay, thank you.
There are hydrants at the school, I would assume.
Yeah.
Because the 5 minutes from the fire station is not the biggest issue. The biggest issue is where they're going to get the water from.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Mr. Mills?
No, I got some comments, but I'll make them later.
I'm sorry, what?
I have some comments, but I'll make them later.
Okay. Thank you very much. Okay, there is nobody else in.
There were a few people who joined once, about a half an hour ago, once we got rolling.
Okay.
Garen Apple, Dan and Sherry Crosley, and Becky Cross joined, but it looks like she left.
Okay. We have anybody that has called in or web.
All right there on your chest. You have to take a look at it.
I don't think they're talking to us.
Anybody that has called in or webbed into this public hearing that you are in favor of this and you want to speak, please, if you're on the phone or.
Grab that tonight too.
Hello?
Alrighty, cool. We'll see you later.
Okay. Dan or Sherry, anybody else that is in favor of this that wishes to speak? Okay, Dan and Sherry are muted.
Yeah, they just muted themselves.
Oh, okay. Okay, now they're unmuted.
So,
Okay.
Dan Crosley, can you hear me?
Yes.
So, yeah, we are in support of the R1, simply for the reasons that have been stated. But again, probably the biggest issue would be the traffic. There's, between those two roundabouts, one at Emmett and Willis, and the one at 9th Street, that is a divided highway with not even a center turn lane in it.
Mr. Crossley?
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but because you're giving sworn testimony on the record, we do need to swear you in.
Oh, okay.
Okay?
Well,
So,
just to be short, we are in support.
oh, you're fine, Monica. You can go ahead because I want to hear what you had to say.
Dan Crosley, do you swear or affirm the testimony you give will be the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So help you God?
Yes.
Thank you. Now, please continue.
Okay, so I guess my point was between those two roundabouts, that it's a divided highway only. So you have one lane north, one lane south, without even a center turn lane, and it just does not make sense to put high density in that west of that in that subject property under consideration, for the simple reason of the traffic nightmare that it would cause. There are sidewalks already in place against the high school, and so there's really you've got a Black Canyon Canal system on the west side of the road that runs north and south along Mortenson's. It's going to be very difficult to do any widening or to try to make accessible so much more traffic. So that's my main point.
Very good. Any questions?
No, thanks. No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay. Then we'll move to those that are opposed. So, Bruce Bain.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, County Commissioners, and public at large. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this subject, proposed zone change in the county. I hope that you read over the city letter dated February 4th, and also a follow-up one on February 12th for the subject property. If you have, I won't continue talking about those. If you have, I will. So please let me know.
I've read it.
those.
Yep. Everybody's nodding that they have read it, Bruce.
Thank you. So, city would like you to please be consistent with what your own P&Z commission has stated in denying that application. The property is contiguous to the city limit. And I want to talk about a little bit of misinformation that has been spoken about by some of the people that have spoken before me. First of all, on the sanitary sewer line that is approximately 1,350 feet away from the property, the city has 95% plans done to get that sanitary sewer line in. It's approximately 1,350 feet, as I mentioned. The price that we're given currently to date is about $70 a lineal feet. So that entire price is under $100,000. Somebody mentioned that it was millions of dollars. It is not. I want to speak a little bit about traffic. So traffic that's going to come out of this subdivision, currently, if it stays in the county, as you all know, all the taxes will be paid to Canyon County and nothing will go to the city, which is going to be required to maintain roads and fix roads. Also, too, there was something mentioned about the city requests more density, and that is totally untrue. The city has R1 zoning, just exactly what they're asking for through Canyon County. And if they want to come in and annex in the city, we will give them R1 zoning, just as the county would. We do have R2 zoning, and we do have our R3 zoning also, but the city has not told them that if they come into the city, they need to have all these other homes. That's just wrong. That's just not right. Also want to point out that the city has City Well 9, which is on the northeast corner of Emmett Road and 9th Street. 40 more homes will be competing against that well, and that's just the truth. On taxes, someone mentioned that they pay taxes to Middleton Parks and Rec, Middleton Fire, Middleton School. Well, I understand that those entities use Middleton's name. They are not City of Middleton entities in any way. They're their own district. And so I just want to make sure that any taxpayers out there know they're not paying a dime to the City of Middleton. Next thing is on the city's area of impact. So Alan and others keep mentioning about Emmett Road. Well, the city's area of impact is Highway 84. It's not Emmett Road. That's why the city's speaking to you today on this project, because it's in the city's area of impact. This entire property will sewer to the east over to Emmett Road and then down to 9th Street. As is previously mentioned, the properties further over to the west, yes, they do fall down, but this property does not. And this entire property would sewer to the existing city sewer. I want to talk a little bit about other projects. Now, I know that people talk about projects, and some of the projects they talk about might maybe contiguous to the city, but a lot of the ones that you've heard mentioned that they talk about in the county are not contiguous to the city. So we're not comparing apples to apples. If there are projects that are further away from the city has no objection to those going into the county, because we can't service them at this time, and we would not we would not want any developer to, to have to pay the cost that they do not want to have to pay to do their projects. This one is contiguous to the city. That's why this one is different. That's why the city has this letter in front of you. You don't hear us talking about these same letters on other projects that are coming into the county, and there's a reason why. Alan mentioned that this does not block the city from going to the west, and it absolutely does. Any project that is contiguous to the city will block the city in one fashion or the other. So I don't know how that is possible that you can annex it into the county or get a development done in the county and not having to block the city out, because that's just not true. It definitely does. And in conclusion, I'd just like to say, please be consistent with what your Planning and Zoning Commission and deny the application. Thank you very much. I'll stand for any questions.
Bruce, I have a question. I've heard both now, that it is contiguous and it is not contiguous. How do you back up your claim?
Well, I back it up on the fact that on the properties that are on the case, on the properties that are on the case number that I'm looking at, when I go into Canyon County Assessor and I look at those properties, they are contiguous to the high school. So that's how I back that up. And anyone can go on the Canyon County Assessor site, go to the addresses shown here, and they will click, and you will see that it is contiguous to the city.
Tell me, would you say one more time where the contiguous points are? Which boundary? Is it the Emmett Road boundary?
Yeah, correct. All the way up at Emmett Road. So any portion that touches on Emmett Road is contiguous to the city.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have a follow-up question to that. So on the contiguous portion, it's already been determined that the commercial piece of that that's been carved out is not a part of this land use decision. And so there's 10 acres separating the area requested for rezone from that boundary that's contiguous on Emmett Road. So that doesn't make sense to me. I think the chair's point is well taken, is that we're not considering that piece. So there's nothing there that touches Emmett Road. So can you redefine then, excluding that commercial piece, where your point of contiguous contact is?
Well, yeah, and you can ask your own planner, Dan Lister, as well. It is the same property owners that own all that property. If they want to change their request so that somehow it takes that 10 acres out, but if you go in there and you click on these properties, it is clear that property is part of that. So,
Mr. Bates, that
commercial
portion isn't contiguous because it's not a part of what we're considering today. That was a decision that's outside of the scope of what we're doing today. So can you tell me again where your point of being contiguous is, excluding the 10 acres that's not a part of this today?
Yeah, the part that is contiguous is on Emmett Road.
Right, Madam Chair, can I speak?
Yes.
Okay. I think what we have here is a disagreement on the definition of contiguity, and that's something that we can talk about as we go on. But it's clear that Bruce's definition and maybe our own planning department's definition says it's part of the whole property, therefore it's contiguous, but it is not part of the requested rezone, so it's not contiguous. So you've got kind of conflicting ideas there. I don't think we're going to gain anything positive by hammering on that anymore. The question I would have, Bruce, is I'm looking at the letter from the city of Middleton, and down here towards the end it says, if the county approves the application, the city requests to be with following conditions. That number one, connect to the city's domestic water system, which I believe is on the west side of Emmett Road, adjacent to the Mortensen property. Water is there. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. It is on that side of the road. It's on the west side of the Emmett Road.
Okay.
Immediately adjacent as well.
Right, and that might be something for the applicant to think about. Arguably, it may be even cheaper to connect to the city's water than it would be to incur the cost on each lot to dig their own well and set their own systems up. I don't know, that's outside my level of expertise, but it may be a financial decision. The other thing is to extend the city's sanitary sewer to and through the project. And you know, I want to ask your opinion if this is what Milton is doing. I know in the city of Nampa, we had many projects that come through and they wanted city water, wanted city sewer because they wanted the higher density. This is not exactly the same, but in every one of those cases, it was the developer's obligation to bring the water line or the sewer line to the project, and then to and through means that it goes through it so that somebody else could hook up to it beyond them. So what is the city of Middleton's position on extending sewer and water lines? Is that developer driven, or does the city do that?
Well, as you well know, the water line is already there, so that's not a question. The sewer line, as I mentioned, the sewer has paid to have the sewer line designed, and we will put the sewer line in at our cost. But once it gets up to the property line, then the property owner must continue that to and through their property, within their property. And I do want to speak a little bit. I do want to speak a little bit about what you said about the cost of the water and sewer. So what developers are doing in the county is they're developing the land and they're making the roads and they're selling the lot. It's the homeowner that comes in afterwards, builds the home. They pay for the sanitary sewer and they pay for the domestic water. It's not the developer at all. And that's why the developers want to develop in the county, because in the city, they have to do this to and through, as you mentioned. So they have to extend the water lines and extend the sewer lines. In the county, they do not. As soon as they have that land complete and they have the road systems in, the city finalizes off on the final plat. They sell those lots, and those developers do not have to pay that money. And so what they're doing is they're shifting that upfront cost to someone else. That's exactly what they're doing.
Yeah, I think I understand that. Thank you.
Madam Chair, I have another question. And
Just one moment, Bruce.
Mr. Bain, I have a question regarding the findings of facts and the conclusions of law, more specifically on the conclusions of law. So there are several references in the staff report that's put together, I guess, out of what's been worked on with the city of Middleton. And in that, are only references to R3 if this were to be a part of the city project. So I heard your public testimony that if you would work to have an R1, but I'm under the impression that you knew what was in the staff report and you don't. Did I miss it where you have something written? I mean, this is consistent in the staff report that an annexation would be R3, which isn't consistent with your testimony. So I guess I'm just wondering if that was in there and you had knowledge that there wasn't a correction that was submitted on the part of the city of Middleton. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Which page are you?
I'm talking about, sorry, Commissioner, Exhibit 7, page 1 is a reference, page 2 is a reference. About the middle of the page on page 2, and then at the bottom under conclusions of law, it's a population component policy 2, first paragraph.
So I want to answer this by saying I do not have the staff report in front of you. I do understand what you're saying. You'll have to ask Dan where he got that information from, because the city has R1, R2, and R3 zoning and multifamily. So the city did not, as far as I know, request that Dan Dan put in R3 zoning.
But, Bruce,
I just can't answer it.
Okay, excuse me for interrupting, but if we read through that, it says, if annexed into the city, the parcels would be zoned R3, which allows 3 units per acre with an 8,000 square foot minimum lot size. The rezone to R1 is consistent with the city's zoning, subject to connection to city water and sewer. So if they connect to the city water and sewer, then they are able to get R1, which is a 1 acre lot, correct?
Correct, yes. If you connect to the city, if you connect to the city, you can have R1 zoning, correct?
Okay.
Madam Chair, I have another question.
I'm sorry, Bruce?
Yeah, you're really going to have to ask Dan about the R3. I'm not sure where he got that from.
And that is a nice segue because Dan has something that he's trying to say.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Dan?
Through the chair, I think the intent of that paragraph was to say the highest it can be, but it would be consistent with the city of Middleton because they could, so that R3 is the highest it can be, but it's still consistent if they went into the city and they can propose an R1 and the city would still allow it. So it's still consistent with what the city would want to do with that. I just showed that what the highest can be is the R3 at 8,000 square foot lots.
I would just argue that word should be could rather than would.
There we go.
Is that correct, Dan?
Okay.
Yes.
And then,
yeah, okay.
Madam Chair, I have another question for Mr. Bain, and it has to do with the property that's being developed on Willis Road. And is that in an area of impact or is that within the Middleton city limits? I think it's an area of impact. Is that right?
Are you talking about the property that's just north of Willis Road?
Correct.
Yeah, the property that's north of Willis Road, that was annexed in the city in, I believe, 2005.
Oh, okay. And so is that right then that R3 is what's being developed on that property?
Yes, it is R3, correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So I have one more question for you, Mr. Bain. This is Commissioner White. If this were to be not allowed, I mean, it's to remain in the county, the city of Middleton with this area and the growth and everything, you do have alternate routes for water and sewer, don't you?
Oh, yes, yes.
Okay. I know it's cost and there's all kinds of things that weigh in, but you have alternate routes available.
Yeah, as was mentioned, when, 20 years down the road, the city is way further to the west. There is, as Alan mentioned, a lift station which will go down on Highway 44 that will sewer the properties to the west of this that are on the other side of this canyon that's been mentioned. However, this property is not a portion of that.
Okay. Thank you. Are there any other questions for Mr. Bain at this time?
But one other question I just thought of. In the city of Nampa, when developers requested and were granted connection to city water and sewer without annexation, they paid a higher fee for that water and sewer. Do you have a policy in city of Middleton that is similar to that?
Our only policy on property that is not contiguous to the city is that we will agree to have them connect up to sewer and water. The cost is exactly the same. There's no difference in cost. However, when the property does become contiguous, it must be annexed at that time. So yes, we do allow that for properties that are further out. The price is exactly the same, and they must annex in whenever becoming contiguous to the city.
And that is consistent with what the city of Nampa does. This is a little different situation here because they're not developing beyond what the county would allow. Most of those instances, and Commissioner White, if you remember anything different, you can correct me. But it seems to me that, for example, Carriage Hill and those kind of areas there had that kind of an agreement. Water and sewer was was extended with the provision that they annex once they become contiguous. But those were developed with probably four lots and 5 lots per acre, so it's a lot higher density.
Yeah, and the city is allowing that on a project called Black Acres, which is about a mile north of this and a mile to the east. So the city has allowed them. They're in the county. The city has allowed additional density above the 1 acre, but they are being sewered by the city and water is provided by the city.
And will be required to annex once it gets there.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so that part of the conversation, and when we go to make a decision, it makes this contiguous yes or contiguous no very important.
Yeah.
It makes it very important. So Dan, because you said we were directed from Bruce to talk to you about where the contiguous aspect of this, where this is. Are you considering that all one piece of property, or are we considering just the rezone requested area?
Correct. Through the chair, when we think about contiguous lots or contiguous, we're not talking about the zone, we're talking about the land, because there's a lot of code that we use. When they talk about contiguous, they talk about the land. So annexation is based on land. Land division is based on the parcel being contiguous to another parcel. Same with property boundary adjustments, contiguous. And so when it comes to annexation, what the city is going to use is the land. When it comes with services, it's based on land being contiguous to the city services, where not rezone. The zone is just a color on a map that dictates what can be used there. So it's not, if you're talking about contiguous zones, that's a whole different thing. You're right. We do not have a code for contiguous zones, but as part of this land, it is one big parcel. If they don't want to be contiguous as part of this rezone, they would have to split that off, that 10 acres or whatever, so it's not contiguous to the city anymore. But they didn't do that. It's one big parcel that's contiguous to city services land-wise.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
I have, I guess, would like our own legal to weigh in, because on page 6 of the Planning and Zoning Commission minutes, Mr. Bauer, who's an attorney, he's been referenced earlier in testimony, he has a citing in here that there are many references, and this is a quote from his brief, to what the city of Middleton wants. The statement that the property is contiguous to the city of Middleton is not true. So Article 9, which is included in the staff report, clearly states the county takes jurisdiction or precedent over the city. And so it also says the Middleton area of impact states that annexation by the city of Middleton shall be limited to those lands in the area of impact and being contiguous to the boundaries of the city of Middleton. The conclusions of law state that the proposed rezone is more appropriate than the current designation. However, the city of Middleton requests that the rezone and future development be approved as part of annexation. The language and other language in the staff report are problematic. Jack, can you weigh in on that?
Madam Chair, Commissioner White, and I've not read the specific letter from Danny Bauer, but I will say that I think that if we're talking about this issue, we're probably getting away from the decisions of Board of Review. We're not going to be required to make a finding of fact today about whether this property is on the border of the city of Middleton or not. I think the question before the board is, will you approve the zoning with water and sewer prepared by the individuals, not adjacent to the city on their own, or are you going to require that they use the city services? And then the question then of whether or not they're on the border or not becomes a question for them when they're negotiating with the city for those services and what fees they'll pay.
Madam Chair, I have one more question.
But I will take a look at that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And I have one more question for you, in fact, and it's been referenced in the testimony, written testimony submitted by this brief. And I did look this weekend. Last year, House Majority Leader Mike Boyle introduced legislation which appeared on the House floor and then was passed by the Senate, signed into law by the governor on February 14th of 2019, which says a property cannot be annexed if it's greater than, I think,
Forced annex.
forced annex. And so if we're looking at it, specifically has to have the permission of the landowner in that. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Are you familiar enough with that?
Sure, and I would just say again that I don't think the question of annexation is before the board at this time. So I don't want to spend too much time on it and get lost in the weeds there because there's a question of factual determination, there's a question of the legal definition for annexation, but it's not something the board needs to decide today or make a finding on.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? Let's see, the applicant, we will give you, yes.
Are there any others?
Yeah, I think there's
Oh, wait.
Ray Waltmate, and then I think Becky Cross is rejoined.
Oh, okay. Mr. Walton, he is opposed, so you have, at this time, would you like to speak? Waltmate?
Mr. Bain covered pretty much everything I would like to talk about. My only question after would be the determination of contiguous or non-contiguous. Go ahead.
Is this Ray?
This is Ray Waltman, yes.
Okay, thank you. And your question is about contiguous?
So I understand the contiguous argument, the way things are going back and forth on being contiguous. It was explained earlier. I thought that was explained well. The land itself is contiguous. The zoning within that land is irrelevant to the contiguousness of Emmett Road and where the property actually sits. So I had no other comments.
Okay, very good. Becky Cross, are you on?
Can I see
Becky?
Yes, she's there.
Okay. Becky, do you wish to speak? It says she is speaking, but we are not hearing her.
Now she's gone.
Okay. Let's see. Janet Gregory.
Janet had registered that she was in a neutral position, but she didn't want to testify.
Thank you.
That's still the case. Should I unmute her so we can find out?
Okay. Oh, yes. Thank you. Okay. I still am worried about Becky because it has her microphone.
I'm not sure what's happening here.
Yeah. I don't want to lose her.
Says she's talking.
Can she?
Maybe she's going to hang up.
She hung again. Oh, maybe she's going to hang up. She did. Okay, we'll just give a minute here for Becky, and then we'll go back to the applicant, and that will be Mr. Mills.
How about this Darren Apple?
Garen Apple, it showed he registered, but he didn't want to testify. He was in favor. I can unmute him if you want to double check.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Apple,
Yes.
did you wish to speak for or against?
Now, I'm in favor of the rezone and not allowing the city to annex.
And you don't want, okay, and you don't wish to speak?
Nope, but I am a, well,
Thank you.
Yeah, we're good. No.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, I think Jenna has her on the phone or something.
I can double check.
Because every time I could hear them talking.
No.
No, okay. Then we don't have, okay, Becky Croft is no longer on. So if that's this time, then we would go to Mr. Mills.
Thank you. Now again, Alan Mills, Box 203. No, I changed addresses long ago. 206 Middleton. So, one of the first statements, trying to cover all the comments by Bruce Bain, and he talked a little bit about fees, and I would make a note, and I know you're aware that there are impact fees being considered right now by the county because they haven't had any, and there are impact fees for roads. Canyon Highway District is developing their plan right now, also for other things. And we are, all of us in the impact area, paying Middleton, Greater Middleton Parks and Recreation fees. So I thought there was a mention that the roads would have to be maintained by the city. If that was a correct statement, then it's not. It's the highway district that would maintain the roads in there. And it sounds easy to, why don't you just run the sewer and water in here and put them on these lots and do 1 acre lots? Try penciling that out, see how it works. We'd probably give this property to somebody that would like to try to do that if they would help the ante and pay for all those costs. Because 1 acre lots just don't justify the water and the sewer for an extension for city services. And it changes the game. These are two different buyers. When the city develops lots 80 by 100, 80 by 90, that's one lifestyle. When you do 1 acre lots and up, it opens the whole world up to activities. Just think back when you were younger, what you could do on 208 feet by 208 feet. You didn't impact your neighbor by throwing a spear with some of the crazy stuff we used to do. You impact everybody if you're on an 80 by 90 foot lot. There are no lack of city lots. There is a glut of city lots. And the property that the city of Middleton has annexed right now, undeveloped, I see 20 to 30 years at current rates of inventory, and they have an expansion going north, east, and south. Randy Woods has 500 homes planned just south of the river on his property. And it's great. Let's all live in the city, but there are those who don't want to. There are those who want a lifestyle that is different, and we don't have any. So our comp plan highly encourages to get a diversity of lifestyles and home style. You'd be fulfilling that greatly with this application. But again, I point to an enclave issue. I bet this will sewer. I've looked at the elevation. This would sewer, but then it won't go in west. So what do we accomplish by getting that far and not being able to go further? It doesn't work. So you're just penalizing this property owner and not helping anybody to the west by requiring that. And I wish we could get a map up here in the county. I'd like to show the path that proves this is not blocking any road. If you go south a little bit, you have the Kavika 80, then you have 44, then you have the data property, which is 100 plus acres, and that is where you could connect. And everything will have to come down to 44 to hit that property that the city has purchased for a lift station. So it's all got to come down that way. It served no purpose to keep going west with those improvements. I got to take exception with the fact that the differences in these applications, I did about 4 or 5 of them. I'm familiar with the other two. Stoffel Lane, Lucy's property in Kingsbury, Duff Lane, Spencer Cofid project there, and Sam Hopkins property just north of this property, all contiguous to the city limits middle. No question about the contiguous. They were. So, I don't know where we get the statement that they were different. The thing that's different here is the staff report and the direction it's going. It turned 180 degrees from all the others. So we've either been wrong on the 7-9 thing, or we're wrong on this one. One of the two. We can't have it both ways. Also, you have to be careful with bringing services into a project because you have Idaho code that states implied consent. So if you do actually hook up to water and sewer, you've implied that you will annex in. So you've just lost your right to consent to not annex in. I'm still grasping this developer paying for the water and sewer, but that poor homeowner, which is I'm one of them, I had to drill my own well and put my own septic in. But I was just sharp enough, barely. I'm just answering questions that came up. Barely sharp enough to figure out that I could pencil that in and put the dollars towards it versus paying a developer. He's not going to stand that cost out of goodwill and not pass it on to be a consumer. You know, the fact that it just magically appears and the developer pays for it is nobody's going to accept that premise. It's just a choice. And to prove that, we would go ahead and give an allowance for well and septic on this and let the developer pay for it. And now that argument goes away. Now you get a well and septic with your lot. So that can be overcome. We have, I've had 49 years in the business, even with that one Bill Davenport. You may remember that name. He was our county engineer for many years, telling us how fast we were going to grow to the west. We're still where we were 49 years ago, with the exception of the high school and the Hartley. Otherwise, we're right where we were 49 years ago. There's a lot of proof here, commissioners, that it is not the pressure to go west. And this really isn't and shouldn't be about contiguous. We could solve that issue by platting that commercial property, making a staging area out of it, creating a separate parcel with it, and that issue goes away. So it's just, to me, not a non-issue. This is about what is the most appropriate and what do the people, if we give any weight at all to the people that live there and have to live with the decision, it appears to me that it's a fairly easy decision. I would ask for, or stand for questions actually on that.
Any further questions?
Well, I just asked a question and regarding, you said something about including a stipulation for the developer having to put a well and septic cost in and pay for that. And Alan, just in my thinking, it really doesn't matter, because if the developer puts some kind of cost figure in there for well and septic, then it's just going to increase the cost of the lot. If he does not do that, then the person who buys the lot still pays the same cost to put a well and septic in. It doesn't really matter.
I was being facetious.
Yeah.
It's the same exact thing with the city law.
Yeah.
The consumer is paying it. You're
Right.
not going to stick the Eddie bread man with an increase in price spread.
Yeah.
It's good. The consumer's going to pay it either way.
Okay, so I didn't know if you were serious on that or not, but to me, it didn't make any difference.
Well, my face.
It might be a good deal, but.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah. Madam, I don't have any.
Anything more? Thank you very much. Okay, now because this is WebEx and this is our first long one, actually, I do need to ask if I've missed anybody, if there's anyone else. You have not spoken.
I don't hear anybody.
Okay, I don't hear anybody, so there's no one else signed up to speak.
Madam Chair, I'll make a motion we close the public comment.
Second. Moved and seconded to close public comment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Let's make a decision.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I've been listening to this. There's a lot of information here, but some of the most credible testimony that we've received today has come from someone who's been in the business for a number of years, Mr. Mills. Also from Rick Freed, who sits on planning and zoning, and although he recused himself, he has several points of very good argument in favor of approving this application as it's been presented. And in looking at what we've done in the past, we did not require Phase-On to connect to the city services. This has a tremendous amount of support from the surrounding people. There's number, if you look just crunching the numbers on the traffic impact, I appreciate Mr. Bain's testimony that go R1, but the annexation to the north of that, it is R3. So that says something to me as a commissioner that Mr. Mills' statement that R1 cannot pay for those services is correct. And then the inventory, if we're looking at meeting a variety of needs, this appears to be a need. The one thing that is glaringly missing in the findings of facts and conclusions of law is the personal property rights, which always leads on every staff report I've seen. So I'm going to provide some credibility for Mr. Mills' statement that this is a little bit out of the ordinary because it jumps right to the policy component too. The goal number one always has to be a consideration of the private property rights of the people holding the land. That is missing in this staff report, so that's concerning to me. And I also think it provides a lot of credibility to say to what end would we require that annexation, which is not wanted by the property owner, to move west, where all of that planned services for lift stations is along 44. That's not unfamiliar to this board. We've heard that before also. So the flow is there, the request is there, the private property rights are there. I am in favor of allowing this to move forward as presented, and obviously my position is probably apparent that because there's a commercial zoning designation out front, that argument, which I understand we're not getting in the weeds on, but it is a relevant factor in this. What we've been presented with does not touch that service and is not part of our decision making.
Well, Madam Chair, I'll go ahead and speak then. I'm in support of this, and I'm not as strongly in support of it as I might be, but I am supportive of it, and I will not stand in the way of this. I think it's a good fit. It's a good. It's consistent with what's going on in the area. But there's some things that were brought up that I would just like to comment on, and it's just my personal opinion on some of these things. Generally speaking, I've made the comment over many, many years of doing this, over 24 years of helping out with land decisions and making decisions on land use and that. And the fundamental principle still remains that urban style development belongs within a city limit. And I think that principle is consistent and needs to be maintained because we're talking about trying to preserve farmland and not eat up farmland and all that kind of stuff. Well, urban development makes greater use of the land available by putting more homes in it. In the city of Nampa, high density is like, what, 7, 8 houses per acre, isn't it, Pam? Something like that, seems like. So even 3 houses per acre in some cities is not considered high density. That's still pretty low. In this case, these 1 acre lots are not urban style development. You do not see that kind of development in lots because as Alan has mentioned, the dollars don't support it. There's also some concern. I know a little bit about the engineering of flow through a sewer system, and you've got to have a certain amount of liquid and stuff to actually keep that flowing. And I don't know that 1 acre lots, single home on 1 acre lots really makes that efficient use either. So anyway, I just want to say something here else too. The high school is in a strategic location. Most schools would prefer to have high density around them because then you don't have to have as many school buses. People can walk or whatever. You know, I walked when I was, this is many years ago, but if you lived within a mile of the school, you walked. I know we don't make kids walk that far anymore, I don't think, right? But so this property, if it was developed to a much higher density, you'd have an awful lot of kids that could just walk to the high school from there, which schools like that because it means less cost on busing. I do agree that even though it's available, even though the water and sewer are available, it's probably not the best issue. And I do understand. My question to Bruce, I think, or somebody, was about the potential of using city water and sewer might be more cost effective than individual wells and septic, but it sounds to me like that's not available unless they agree to annex, and this property does not want to annex. So that's kind of a catch-22 there. Fire flow is essential, and it helped me to know that there are fire hydrants there at the high school. I would be interested in knowing if that's close enough for the fire service needs. I don't know. I know they could fill their tanker trucks right there and get quick return back and forth if they need to do that. So that's a lot better than if there weren't any. So I'm not too worried about that. Let's see. If there were properties available to the west that are looking to annex and wanting to develop high density, because high density is more profitable to the landowner, sell more lots, more houses in there, they get more money. I don't see that there are people waiting to annex west of this property. So this might be the end of annexation for many, many years to come. With those comments, I guess well, the other thing, and I think Carrie mentioned this, we have set precedent in this area with the types of property that have been already permitted. And I think it would be somewhat inconsistent to turn around and say, well, we can't do this one here. It seems to me that there's some consistency that would be lost if we reverse direction at this point. So again, as I started out by saying, I do support this, just with those comments that I wanted to put on record. Thank you.
Thank you. I think that I pride myself in looking at each one of these as a case by case. And so there is some precedence, I agree, and things like that, but there's always something about every single one of these that we get that's different or that makes it unique and individual. And in that, it deserves our complete and open mind and not a comparison. And I always have a couple of measurements when I make land decisions, and one of them is compatibility. That's a huge one. And this certainly, as presented, is compatible, very compatible with the area around it. I think Mr. Hilton made very good points in his testimony about the compatibility and the other homes and the size of the lots. It was quite a thought, too. Ms. Skinner said there are 2 1-acre lots available, and that is just quite overwhelming at this time because families are larger and that sort of a thing. So, but probably another thing that I always think about is what compels me in a hearing to make a decision, and the compelling fact or point that was made is that it won't go west. Once it comes into this area, it'll go west down at 44, or it'll go west somebody else, some other, they're going to have to reroute to go west. But once it comes into this with the lay of the land and the way it's sloped and the gullies and that sort of a thing, that will not, if the city goes there, it will just end there. It's next to impossible, and you want to talk cost prohibitive. So that would be a huge burden. I'm not going to say that it's impossible because man is way beyond doing what we can limit him to. So, but I am in favor of this. It's compatible, and it's the fact that the areas around it and the subdivisions, et cetera, are in that area too, and it works. And I appreciate the work that staff has done. I really appreciate the thought and the input of planning and zoning. And that sometimes everybody thinks, well, you need to agree. But you know what? From the time it leaves planning and zoning until it gets before the Board of County Commissioners, a lot of times there's more information. And the information that was given there has expanded, and it's become broader and gives us more information to make our decisions with. So I will make a motion, as long as that's okay. There's nothing else. So I'll make a motion that we approve the rezone request of the parcels of 1.27, 7.08, and the 33.38 from A, agricultural, to R1, single family residential with a 1 acre average minimum lot size for Ken and Cheyenne Mortensen, represented by Alan Mills and Jessica Skinner.
Second. And just to put, I don't think you said it, but it's RZ 2019-003.
Oh, the case number. Thank you, Commissioner Dale. Okay, moved and seconded to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. So we have the findings.
They'll have to redo findings of fact because we'll have to set a date to do findings of fact.
How long does Dan need? What? How long does Dan Lister need to get those?
Oh, Dan?
At least a week.
A week? Okay.
A week as in Friday, or a week as in next Tuesday?
Next week sometime.
How about June 2nd at 10 a.m.? Well, wait, hang on. We have a.
Do we do it like during the legal staffing?
Dan will be here for a final plat signing at 10.
Okay. Can we do 10:15?
Like the assessor's coming at 10:15. I guess we could do
10:10.
Yeah, it depends on how long do you think the signing will take. Need a half-hour appointment, or do you think you can get this and a final plat in 15 minutes?
I think we can.
Okay.
Yeah, no,
10 a.m. June 2nd.
Okay. 10 a.m. June 2nd, Dan.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That will conclude this meeting. All of you that are online, thank you so much for bearing with us.
The motel that says we've served 5,600
Yeah.
happy guests and 3 grouches.
Yeah.
You've made a whole bunch of people happy.
Oh,
Not too
my
many.
God. They're doing cartwheels.
Oh, good. The only thing we consider.